I think we're right on the money.
So it's recording's going. All right. I call to order the December 7th, 2022 Area Board of Zoning Appeals of Tippecanoe County meeting. First item on the agenda is the roll call.
Steve Clevenger,
Present.
Gary Schroeder,
Present.
Tom Andrew,
Present.
Robert Novak,
Present.
Michelle Dennis,
Present.
Dustin Grove, Ed Butts. Present. Quorum present.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the previous meeting minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the September 28th, 2022 BZA public hearing as submitted.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. New business. We do have a case for continuance, but we'll take that in a minute. I'll go ahead and take the public hearing motion, please.
I move that there be incorporated into the public hearing portion of each application be heard this evening and to become part of the evidence at such hearing.
Speaking loud enough.
Thank you.
Way back.
The Unified Zoning Ordinance, the Unified Subdivision Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the bylaws of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, the application and all documents filed therewith, the staff report and recommendations on the application be heard this evening, and responses from checkpoint agencies.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. And I'll go ahead and take the continuance, please.
I move to continue BZA 2091 Amber E. King to the January 25th, 2023 ABZA meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. If you're here for BZA 2091 Amber E. King, that is the agricultural rental hall on County Road 700 West. That will be heard at the January 25th Area Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, which is our next meeting. I'd now like to briefly describe our procedures for this evening. Each case will be heard following a motion and a second from the board. We will ask the staff to report on its findings. Following the staff report, we'll ask the petitioner to present his or her case, after which anyone wishing to support the petitioner's request for a variance or special exception will be asked to come forward. After hearing from the petitioner and those speaking on his or her behalf, we'll ask those speaking against the petition to present their arguments. The petitioner will then be allowed to rebut arguments raised by those in opposition to his or her petition. Following the rebuttal, the board may wish to ask questions of the petitioner, supporters, and opponents of the petition or of the staff. The staff will have the opportunity at this time to make any necessary clarifying comments. We will then vote by use of a prescribed ballot. 4 votes are necessary to make any decision. In the absence of 4 votes, either for or against, the petition is automatically continued to the next meeting. Please observe the following guidelines for the sake of time and fairness to all. State your name and address for the record before you speak. Limit your remarks to 5 minutes or less. Please do not repeat arguments that have been brought up by others. Remember that all visual aids used to support your arguments will remain the property of the board. Cell phones must be turned off while the meeting is in session. Please step out of the room before using your cell phone. And we ask those that are not the petitioner, if you are speaking, after you speak, to please go over to the staff desk over here and put your name, sign in with your name and address, so we have that for the record. With that in mind, we will hear the first case.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2090 CSG Realty LLC. Petitioners requesting a special exception to allow a transient guest house operating 24 hours per day, 7 days per week, for a maximum of 6 guests at 348 Overlook Drive, east of Soldiers Home Road in the Ravinia Addition, just outside of West Lafayette, Wabash 5 Southeast 23-4 with conditions.
A second.
Thank you. And we'll hear from staff, please. Amanda?
Thank you. Good evening. Amanda, APC staff. So the petitioner in this case has requested a special exception, essentially for an Airbnb. Let me get here. So, thank you, I will. So the special exception in this case is for a transient guest house. This is an Airbnb type of rental of 30 days or less. The owner will not be on site. According to the petitioners, however, they will be just over an hour away should any issues arise. They also have local contractors, vendors nearby to address any concerns for the house. Here you can see that the zoning is R1, single-family residential, as is essentially everything around it. This area is heavily wooded. You can see that the city of West Lafayette city limits are relatively close, but it is outside of the city of West Lafayette. There is a closer aerial. Again, it is heavily wooded. You can barely see the house here in the aerial. And the site plan. So the maximum guests that the petitioner has put in their petition is 6. The 2-car garage plus the driveway is sufficient to park up to that number of guests. According to the petitioner here, it is a 3-bed, 1.5-bath house. Staff believes that this use would be similar to any other residence in the area. The ordinance prohibits a transient guest house use from changing its basic appearance as a dwelling, nor are they allowed to post any outdoor signage indicating that it is a transient guest house. Regarding the ballot items, the UZO does authorize this special exception as a guest house in the R1 zoning district, and it is staff's opinion that the requirements and development standards for the requested use as prescribed by the UZO will be met. When changing to a guest house, all development standards are the same as a single-family residence. They will not be changing the existing structure for this use. Granting this special exception will not subvert the general purposes served by the ordinance. If it is approved, only 6 guests can stay at this location, which is consistent with the existing structure and use currently in place. Granting the special exception will not materially and permanently injure other property or uses in the same district and vicinity because of traffic. The traffic generated due to this use would be no different than other homes and uses in this neighborhood because the house will be rented at any given time to a maximum of 6 guests. Placement of outdoor lighting. The existing lights on the exterior of the buildings are sufficient to illuminate this single-family home. No additional lights will be installed. Noise production. The petitioner's house rules state that they will not permit parties or pets, which would be the largest noise contributors. Noise sensors and a Ring doorbell will be installed to help monitor noise levels. Noise associated with families renting this house for a short term in a residential neighborhood would be similar to other properties in the area. And hours of operation, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is the same as any other residential use. Staff is recommending approval with the following condition: that they obtain a permit to operate the transient guest house from the Tippecanoe County Building Commission office. I am happy to answer any questions if you have any. I do have other pictures. I apologize, I didn't go through them as I was reading. So that's the front of the house here that shows the driveway. This is the road that the house is situated on, looking south. As you can see, it is a road with no sidewalks, curbs, or gutters. And that's it. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you. We may have some for you later. Petitioner or petitioner's representative?
Hi, I'm Sophie Gifford. I'm at 348 Overlook Drive. And this is my husband, Colin. And we appreciate your time this evening hearing our case for the request for the special use permit at 348. Colin and I are both mechanical engineers. Colin's a Purdue grad, so we're really excited about the opportunity to join the West Lafayette community again for a second time. We're big Purdue sports fans, looking forward to the game right after this. But it's an opportunity for us and for our family to, again, join the West Lafayette community and really enjoy being part of the Purdue sports events where we've got season tickets to football games, basketball games, and just an opportunity for us to spend a lot of time there. When we are not able to enjoy and be at the house ourselves, we are hoping for the ability to host guests through the platform called Airbnb. This ability helps us offset some of the costs for having the home for ourselves and enjoying it for our family. We've been spending a lot of time at the house ourselves, investing in it. We've been working with a lot of local contractors, HVAC, electrician, painters, landscapers, you name it. Really just investing in the home and making it something that we're proud of for us and for our family. And we've been really warmly welcomed into the neighborhood. You can tell it's just truly a really wonderful neighborhood. As part of this process and the request to operate as what we call a transient house, we really respect our neighbors, and so we've been working to connect with a lot of them, and we've had a lot of really positive conversations, but we've also heard some concerns, so I just want to address some of those concerns here today. I think when neighbor hears, there's going to be an Airbnb in the neighborhood, I think the ultimate concern that I've heard is that it will become a party house. There will be noise that might be created, and just generally it might disrupt the neighborhood. And again, it's a really lovely neighborhood. But I can assure you that is certainly not my intention and not our expectation either. Like I mentioned, we're going to use the Airbnb platform if we get this ability, and through that platform we'll be able to screen guests. So that will really allow us to truly only allow guests that we accept into the home. We'll have several policies in place: a no party policy, no pets, noise policy, max occupancy limit of 6, and a 2-night minimum stay. So we really feel like these policies, these are policies that guests will have to agree to prior to booking, and we truly feel like these policies eliminate any opportunity for a party to occur. In addition to these policies, we do have certain engineering controls in place. We'll have a Ring doorbell with a camera, and that will allow us to monitor who comes and goes from the property and ensure that our max occupancy limit is being followed. We'll also have a noise device that we can set to a certain decibel limit. So that will allow us to monitor, what kind of noise is being made by this property and ensure that our noise policy is being followed. The house has a 2-car garage and a long driveway, so we truly feel like there's plenty of space for 10 cars to park, but certainly, again, with a max occupancy limit of 6, even if every guest drove their own car, there's plenty of parking on the property and would not have any concern with blocking the neighborhood streets. We don't anticipate issues to come up. We certainly don't. But like we mentioned, we do have a team of local contractors of every trade that we're working with. We'll also have a local manager that will be able to, address any sort of issue. Again, we don't anticipate that, but they will have that ability to address any issue that come up. My husband and I were in Brownsburg. We're not far away at all. And again, we're going to be spending a lot of time there ourselves. We just want this ability to help us kind of offset the cost to enjoy it ourselves. So finally, really just excited about this opportunity for us and for our family and what kind of it brings for us. And we're looking forward to the discussion this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Sorry, I forgot to state that I have 7 letters to read as well as a petition
Okay. For or against?
in opposition.
In opposition. Okay. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition?
What was the question?
Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? We'll go ahead and take the letters, please, if you want to, I'm assuming pass the petition around. I'm assuming the petition won't be read, correct?
Just passed.
It just passed, okay.
Someone's going to read them. Someone's going to read them. Dear board members, we live at 201 Colony Road in West Lafayette within the Ravenemy subdivision area. We strongly object to the request to allow a transient guest house at 348 Overlook Drive. Our neighborhood is comprised of owner-occupied homes that show pride of ownership, as many have made expensive improvements. We have no through streets, little traffic, little on-street parking, many ravines, lots of walkers, and a school bus that stops down the street from 348 Overlook Drive. It seems like a transient guest house would fit better in downtown Lafayette or closer to Purdue, where there are many rentals, ample off-street parking, and numerous shops and restaurants within walking distance. For these reasons, we object to the rezoning. Thank you for your consideration. Signed, Norman and Sally Nursheimer. Good afternoon. Sending a letter in lieu of attending the December 7th meeting due to travel conflicts. Thank you, Karen and Margaret, for leading the charge with this issue. Please accept this letter to confirm that Tom and Kelly Marshall, 318 Overlook Drive, do not accept the request to turn 348 Overlook Drive into transient housing. Our Ravenemy neighborhood covenants and restrictions prohibit this type of zoning. There is a very real possibility that the house would cause nuisance, noise, and general disturbance of peace, resulting in increased police complaint calls. Please keep in mind that this neighborhood is in the county and not within the West Lafayette Police Department jurisdiction, so there could be delays in response times for nuisance complaint calls that we shouldn't have to deal with. Most importantly, from a safety standpoint, there will be potential increases to traffic on a road that is not well lit and very narrow with children that play in the neighborhood. These types of transient houses also oftentimes have way more people staying in them than should be allowed, resulting in more parked cars. This will cause a major problem with off-street parking on a very narrow street. The road is simply not wide enough to have cars parked. The permanent residents should not have to put up with any of these issues either. Due to the neighborhood covenant restrictions and the numerous safety and noise risks, we simply cannot have this type of house allowed in the neighborhood. The APC board wouldn't want to have a transient house near where they live, neither do we. Signed, Tom and Kelly Marshall. Dear board members, a short time ago while on a visit to Washington, D.C. with our grandchildren, I met a military officer who worked for the Pentagon. When he heard that on the way I tipped the Uber driver in cash rather than using my Visa, he said, "Tipping in cash is old school." He then went on to add, "Since you are from Indiana, how long have you lived in your home?" I told him that I have lived in my home for over 40 years. His response was, "Today, nobody lives in a house that long." He followed up with the observation that I was old-fashioned. As I think about living on Overlook Drive, perhaps my acquaintance is correct in his observation. Although the subdivision has restrictive covenants, there have been many changes in building codes since our subdivision was designed and built for single-family dwellings. The road does not come up to current code. There is barely enough room for 2 cars to pass without tapping the brakes to allow the other car a right-of-way. There is no off-street parking, no curbs or sidewalks. Neighbors frequently put up thin, temporary vertical stakes to discourage drivers from making tire marks in their lawns. When children in the neighborhood walk to the waiting school bus near the entrance of the subdivision, they walk down the narrow street where they are not protected by sidewalks or lights. Neighbors regularly walk their dogs down the street. When someone not familiar with the congestion drives rather fast, walkers and their best friends frequently step off the street and onto the grass or a neighbor's driveway. I do realize the petitioner's request for a special exception to the zoning and the recorded restrictions of the subdivision may offer a good investment opportunity. Our subdivision is not far from Purdue University and home for numerous well-attended basketball and football games. By granting of the special exception, it would be very difficult to monitor and regulate the extent of use of the property and its impact on the neighborhood. On balance, I hope the decision of this body tips in favor of my neighbors by denying this special exception for the property located at 348 Overlook Drive. Thank you. Signed, Don and Sherry Johnson. Who it may concern. As residents of the Ravenemy neighborhood, we are vehemently opposed to the variance request for 348 Overlook Drive to be used for a transient guest house. Our neighborhood is a community of families and not investment properties. Our goals are not to diversify our portfolios. It is to live in this neighborhood to enjoy the peace and beauty of our homes and neighbors. Our neighborhood is not designed to support an establishment that caters to a transient population. The safety of our residents will suffer. Our thoroughfares do not have sidewalks. As a resident, we are aware that our neighbors like to walk all times of day and take caution when we drive through our neighborhood. However, individuals only seeking a bed after a football game will not care about those people. The peace of our residents will suffer. While the new owner of the property claimed they will screen potential occupants, limit occupancy, etc., there is no guarantee to our families that this screening process will accommodate our neighborhood and the quiet atmosphere we have developed. This is a foreign business entity operating with the desire to profit from our community, not a family wanting to become a part of our neighborhood. We ask that you please deny this variance request and maintain the integrity of our neighborhood as a place for families. Signed, Jennifer Byron in Min Shen Ho. To the Area Board of Zoning Appeals. My husband and I moved to Lafayette in 1954 when he took his position as the band director at Purdue University. We bought the lot and built in Ravinimi and were one of the first owners back in 1956. At 97, I have spent the majority of my life living in West Lafayette and the Ravinimi subdivision. We have watched families grow, move on, and even seen some of the next generation move back to our neighborhood. We are truly a unique family that has grown over the years. As I stated, I am 97 and legally blind. I walk my dogs down the street with little or no worries about traffic. I can go and knock on any neighbor's door for help if I need it. We definitely have a small-town vibe that has been consistent since the early 60s. We have potlucks and neighborhood get-togethers on a regular basis. We help each other out, attend funerals, take over food to our friends during tragedies, send congratulation cards, and get well cards to each other. We also only have one access into the division, which has cut down considerably on foot or car traffic. Strange cars or new people are definitely noticed, and I feel this has been a great determinant to crime in the area. Allowing a transient establishment in the neighborhood would change our neighborhood dynamics in ways that I do not feel would be an asset to our neighborhood. Since this property is right across from mine, I definitely will not feel safe or secure with the added traffic. People that are not residing in the house are not invested in the house or the neighborhood. I realize that someone has bought this property and is wanting to derive income from this venture. However, the rules of the subdivision have been in effect for a long time. This person or persons either bought the house knowing the policies and wanting to change them from the start. Since the titled owner is actually a real estate company, they should have known of the rules before they bought. Due diligence. I also feel that since the company is not even local but based in Brownsburg, that they will not have the control that they need to oversee this endeavor. I do not feel that it is ethically to allow someone to come in and try to change the rules just because they want to. Please do not allow someone to come into our neighborhood and change our lives just so they can make money. Signed, Gladys Stone Wright. To the Area Board of Zoning Appeals of Tippecanoe County. From 1984 to 1986, our family lived in Ithaca, New York. Christoph worked at Cornell, Leah attended 1 and 2 grades, and I volunteered for hospice. We enjoyed a happy 2 years living there. One thing used to puzzle me when new friends would ask where we were from and we told them West Lafayette, Indiana. They seemed to have little idea of our area and what it offered, what distinguished it. I thought about it and after a while would finally say with only some exaggeration, we don't have gold and nor oil fields. People are our natural resource. That thought was born from my experience of living in Ravinimi. Our family has lived here for 46 years, knew John and Ruthanna Amy, who built the neighborhood, and every person we've known over these long years in Ravinimi has made wonderful and significant contributions to us and our entire community. A residence that is transient by definition makes no contribution to any of us in our Ravinimi community. Ravinimi is a treasure to be valued, not only for us, but for the larger West Lafayette area. Please vote no for a zoning exception that for the first time would be a non-contributing member. Help us preserve what we have. Thank you, Karen Johnson Hoffman. Last letter. My name is Wyatt Hooker. I live in Ravinimi neighborhood. On behalf of myself and my family, we ask that you do not allow the property at 348 Overlook Drive to become a transient guest house. We have lived in the neighborhood for the past 10+ years. What drew us to the neighborhood was the close-knit community where everyone knew their neighbor and looked out for each other. We have 2 younger children who love to bike, rollerblade, and walk the neighborhood. Allowing the property to become a guest house puts our family at greater risk due to the increased traffic coming in and out of the neighborhood that will not be on the lookout for children or people. We have no sidewalks and the roads are very narrow, so the only place for them to do these activities is in the street. Due to the fact that the streets are so narrow, it would not allow for street parking for people at this address. Adding more traffic to the neighborhood is certain to make the lives of the residents more dangerous. Please do not allow this house to become a transient guest house. Signed, Wyatt and Sonia Hooker.
Thank you. I will now take those that would like to speak in opposition. A reminder, if you did submit a letter and it was read, that you have given up your right to speak. So if you would please come forward, and we'll take those in opposition. And please remember to sign the sheet on the staff desk when you leave.
Hi, my name's Pat Morrissey, 368 Overlook Drive in Ravenna subdivision. I guess I'm going to start off because I had some notes that I was going to ask about. But if I heard staff correctly, you're saying that this is in compliance with R1 zoning. And I guess I'd have to question that, because if it's in compliance, why do you need a special exception and a variance? So that's my first question. And I guess I want to start off by saying, my wife Sharon and I have lived in Ravenna for 21 years. And when we first moved in, it was sort of unique because we were one of the few families that had children. And since that, if you fast forward, there's now multiple families, numerous families, young families with children. And it's an environment we want to protect. And if you look at the definition of an Airbnb, it's a small hotel, it's a bed and breakfast, and I don't see how that's consistent with an R1 zoning. So really, everything else I was going to talk about's already been addressed in the letters, but I just, in order to keep the integrity of the current neighborhood, I respectfully ask that you deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you. Next in opposition, please. Just please keep coming forward as one finishes.
Sure. My name is Al Holmberg, and I live at 315 Overlook Drive. And my wife and I strongly disagree with this request for approval for 348 for CSG Realty, not a family, but a CSG Realty. My son is right here, Kevin Holmberg, and his wife. They live at, by the way, I live 4 houses away from 348 Overlook. My son and my grandson and his wife live 1 house away from 348 Overlook, and they also strongly disagree with 348 Overlook becoming an A&B. Someone mentioned a petition that's going around. The petition has 44 signatures on it. And part of what the petition says is that our covenants say, and this is approved by the Tippecanoe County Board of Commissioners, and I have the copy of the covenants of our neighborhood that's filed with you and registered by all of you. And it says, no one shall operate more than a single family dwelling in the Ravenna neighborhood. It says it in the paper that was signed by 44 people, okay? It also says no noxious, offensive trade or activity can take place in our neighborhood. It also says anything that can become an annoyance or a nuisance is not allowed in our neighborhood due to the covenants that were approved and accepted by the Tippecanoe County Board. It also says in there that the residents of Ravenna can change the covenants to say whatever they want it to say, to include no A or Bs, with a 50% majority of the people in Ravenna. We can change the covenants with 50% of the people. The reason I'm here is I want to talk about safety. I'm concerned about not having any incidents or fatalities or any incidents of any type for my neighbors. I've lived in that neighborhood for 12 years. I came from Carmel, Indiana. I lived in Carmel, Indiana. It's very hectic. I'm sure you've been to Carmel. You've seen the traffic. You've seen what it's like to live there. I'm in heaven living in Ravenna. It's a wonderful, wonderful neighborhood. I bought my house the next day after I saw it. I saw all the neighbors. I saw everything in there. I bought the house the next day. That was 12 years ago. I want to talk about safety because I'm actually the retired director of health and safety for Eli Lilly and Company. I retired and I was responsible for the health and safety and environmental and vehicle safety for 45,000 people all around the world. It's my responsibility to make sure that we didn't have any accidents or injuries at all for that 45,000 people. Okay, so my focus is on safety. What your staff did not take into account is how we use our neighborhood. There's no on-the-street parking, take a look at this picture right here. Do you see any cars parked on that street? There is not a single car of any type. Did you see any cars on the street in the neighborhood when you were there? There's no cars on the neighborhood because we know that can't be. If you have more than 2 cars in this driveway at 348 Overlook Drive, then you have to play first one in, last one in, first one out. And so somebody's going to end up parking on the street. And we are not accommodated for someone parking on the street. No one in this room parks on the street in our neighborhood. No one does. Look at it again. There may be more pictures. Show them. There's no one that parks there. And this CSG Realty, I bet they can't guarantee that we're not going to have any on-the-street parking. We have walkers. I've never seen so many walkers in a neighborhood. I mean, I look out my front door, and there's always a walker going past my house. There's dog walkers going past my house. Our 99-year-old neighbor goes by with her.
If you can face us so that we
I'd be
can hear
happy
you.
to do that.
Thank you.
Be happy to do that. We have no street lights. We have curves in our street. The designer for our street, Dr. Amy, put curves in there. I'll finish up. I'll say that I'm concerned about the health and safety of our neighbors. We have not had any injuries or illnesses of any type since I've lived there in 12 years. I don't want to have any because there's on-street parking for a CSG Realty. And just because it has 6 people that can stay there overnight, do you think that there's not going to be other people there? Do you think there's going to be other visitors and other guests? There will be. It'll be on-the-street parking. Let's be safe for us. Let's have this board vote down approving this request. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could please sign in, please.
Sorry. Sorry, I know you said no phones, but my notes are on my phone, so I promise I'm not texting in the meeting. Hi, folks. I'm AJ Schwichtenberg. I'm the owner of 327 Overlook Drive. I'm also the owner of 333 Overlook Drive. We purchased a house in this neighborhood for all of the reasons that folks noted before. Really fell in love with it. It's a multi-generational community for many families, and so we purchased the house next door to us for my mom, so that my mom could have a place that we could take care of her. And I think that actually is an emblem of what this neighborhood is. You all have heard of blue zones, right? That these are these areas where people move in and they live forever. And I remember when we moved in here, I was when we moved in 10 years ago, there hadn't been much turned over, but it's amazing to me when people move into Ravinia, they stay. They don't go because it really is a wonderful place to go. And I'm sure that is what attracted them to buy it, that it is this quiet, peaceful place for families. And I'm sure it will make it an attractive place and a place for them to be able to make some money. But unfortunately, I don't think they're going to be able to have the same investment in this community that we have. They won't donate to the tree fund. They won't come to our socials. They won't be a part of our informal safety network. You've heard that we have several members who have exceptional needs, not just because they're elderly, but because we have some children who have exceptional needs. And functionally, we know each other, and we know, oh, no offense, Gladys. We know Gladys is walking. She can't see us. We're going to steer out of the way. When people come into the neighborhood, they don't know that. And it really is something that, as much as they'll try to screen and do the right thing, not everyone's going to know that. And I applaud them for trying to do something to be able to monitor from afar. But the bottom line is, if somebody is not in compliance, it's going to fall on the neighbors to report it. And they didn't ask for this. They're not being compensated for it. They really are, just trying to live out their neighborhood and their family, their life there. I got to check my notes, folks. I was real good up until that point. Yeah, I think you've heard about the connectedness of our neighborhood, and I just want to put on record 2 additional houses that are in opposition of this. Again, nothing personal against the folks who bought it, but to recognize that their plans to rent it out is really at odds with the larger community. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next in opposition.
I also have notes on my phone, so thank you for understanding.
It's okay to use your phone for notes. We just don't want it
okay.
ringing or
Oh, fair.
beeping or anything, or you talking on the phone while you're...
My name is Robin Bartlett. I live at 119 Valley View Court. I am across from the backyard of 248 Overlook Drive. I've lived in Ravindimie for 2.5 years with my husband, and we were so excited to live there that we bought our house before it even hit the market. We got lucky that way. My husband and I chose Ravindimie for all the reasons our neighbors have already articulated, and my objections mirror theirs as well. And I would add, not only are there safety issues for all the people, I walk my dog there almost every day. And I went, yeah. And everything they've said makes me love the neighborhood and want to preserve it even more than I already do. My further concern with safety has to do with wildlife. One of the reasons I chose Ravindimie and have always wanted to live on a ravine is that we have a marvelous number of birds, foxes, coyotes, deer, and so on, and that's also an environment that we want to preserve, and that unfortunately people who don't also live in the neighborhood and care about the neighborhood can't possibly maintain. I was also excited to have new actual neighbors who would join our community, and I'm really disappointed that that's not the case. Oh, thanks, I'll go sign up.
Thank you. Next in opposition, please.
My name is Margaret Rowe, and I live at 342 Overlook Drive, which is right next door to 348. And I would be most happy to welcome the Giffords as neighbors, but not as hotel keepers. And I just have a couple of short remarks. It's reading quotes from the report made to the zoning board from the APC. They describe the area land use, pardon me. This home was built in 1970 as a single-family residence, according to the assessor's records. The entire neighborhood is composed of single-family homes. There have not been any other BZA cases nearby. The integrity of the neighborhood is at stake here. And finally, at the meeting on December 7th, the Executive Committee of the Area Plan Commission voted that granting this request would, quote, not substantially adversely affect the comprehensive plan. I ask you to consider to what extent it would adversely affect not a plan, but people who live there. We are a community, we're not a comprehensive plan, and we would like your support in remaining a community. I encourage you to reject the request. Thank you.
Thank you. Next in opposition, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Murray. I live at 352 Overlook Drive, which is the property on the other side. I have lived here since 2009. I know because people always wonder, my accent is from South Africa. This is my home. I do not talk about going home as going to South Africa. Going home means going to 352 Overlook Drive, and I really would like to keep that feeling of home. I agree with everything that has been said before. I want to add a couple of specific points. The petitioner indicated that parties or pets would be prohibited, but they will be an hour away. They talk about a local manager. Who is this local manager? Can we count on that local manager? They also mentioned a 2-night minimum stay as a way of preventing this house being used as a party house. there's nothing to stop someone making a booking for 2 nights and only using 1 night. How will they force guests to park in the driveway? There's no way they can force them. So these are transient guests by nature, so they can't enforce that. And then finally, there has been a lot of mention about safety. I'm a runner, so I'm on that road a lot. Everyone knows me running around there. A couple of weeks ago, I almost got hit by a car on Overlook Drive, which earlier on I had seen parked at 348 Overlook Drive. So that's just a specific example of a car that swerved at the last moment because they were not aware of the kind of street that we are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for allowing us to speak here. I just have one thing based on my experience.
Steve, name and
I'd like
address.
everybody to understand it. My wife...
Can you say your name and address for the record,
Oh,
please?
excuse me. My name is Drew Casani, and I live at 363 Overlook Drive. My wife has rental property in West Lafayette, and there's no way you can guarantee the type renter that's going to come into a neighborhood. She rents through a broker, so it's done professionally. And when she had that property, one time someone came in and started making crack in the basement. Now, you say, well, that'll never happen. And I thought it would never happen, but it happened to me. And when that happens, all of a sudden, there's a quiet little house, and there's a crack house in there, and the police have to come, and the neighbors see all the police arriving. And what's happened is the value of that house, we were not able to rent it again for almost a year because of what happened. And I say that in addition to all of what you've heard. I came into this neighborhood after looking for a home in West Lafayette for over a year. This neighborhood is unique. And bringing rented property in that neighborhood is really going to do damage to the resale value. It's going to do damage to the people that are living there. This road has no no way out. And so it's very important that it be kept that way. And if you look at the pictures of the neighborhood, it's not where you have transients coming in and out. And we've made a lot of investment in that neighborhood and would like to see it stay that way. So we plead with you to view the neighborhood as we view it, not as a commercial entity. Thanks.
Thank you.
Carolyn Persifield. I live at 400 Overlook Drive. My house was built much later than most of the houses. Bought it from somebody who had purchased it to build and couldn't afford their dream house at the time. I knew John Amy and his family personally, and when my house was built, that my husband at the time and I built it, was in 1987, 88. The reason there weren't very many children in the neighborhood is because I would say at least half the homes still were owner-occupied by the people who built them in the 50s and 60s. I only know of 2 other houses that have been built in the neighborhood since I built my house, and I've been there, like over 30 years. One was my neighbors that just spoke, and another was at the end of Colony. So, and those have both been in the neighborhood for about 25 or 30 years as well. I believe, and one thing, I just did a quick scan of a few houses along Overlook, not even the side streets. 1, 2, 3, at least 3 out of 9 or 10 houses, they're only on their second owner. We had children visit, grown adult children, to come back and see their natal homes. One was a neighbor on Westwood, and I think she's only about the 4th owner. And one was a new neighbor, new for a few years, who bought from an original owner. It was very carefully planned when John Amy bought the farmland from the farmer down on South River Road, North River Road, and that he wanted it to be a place where families could flourish, children could play, and neighbors were truly neighbors. I don't plan to leave my house anytime soon because I love it there. I love it there. It's not a house that was built for old age, but I will stay as long as my legs can make it up and down stairs and up and down the hill that I have to climb to get up into the main part of the neighborhood. So again, I hope, like my neighbors, that you will not vote in favor of the request. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in opposition?
Kevin Holmberg, I'm at 330 Overlook Drive. I wasn't planning on coming up here and speaking. I think everyone has said everything. I have an 11-year-old son. I don't want to have to look out the window and see him laying on the ground because someone ran him over. It's safety. We all know everybody. We all know the speed limit. New people don't know the speed limit. I see Uber drivers coming in there delivering food to some people. They speed. And I'm sure all these new people that are going to rent this house are going to speed through the neighborhood. I live 2 houses away from this house, right on the corner. He's out on his bicycle. He's playing outside. Am I going to tell him he can't play outside? Stay in the yard? No, that's not what the neighborhood is about.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in opposition?
Nikki Jo Kehoe. Can you hear me, Gladys? I don't live at 345 Overlook Drive. My aunt does. I live at 634 New York Street. My aunt built this place in 1958. My mom lived there for 2 years while she graduated from high school. I've been there for Christmases, Thanksgivings all my life. I've watched this neighborhood grow up. I am over there every day now because I help take care of Gladys. And like we said, she's 97 years old. But I would just like to reemphasize 2 things. Number one, you guys know that house in West Lafayette, the renters on the weekend are going to be football people. They're either going to be Purdue fans or they're going to be the opposite team coming. You know there's going to be parties. There's no way. You can't look at me in the face. You can't look me in the face and say there's not going to be parties. There's going to be parties. That's what they do. Have you been to a Purdue game? There's parties. The other thing is they bought the house knowing what the rules were. So why are we coming late to the party and trying to change the rules? This neighborhood, right across the street is my aunt, 97 years old, legally blind. She walks out of the house, everybody keeps an eye on her. On the other side is another older lady. Half the neighborhood is over 70, 80. And so when they have a loud party, these people are in Brownsburg. They don't care. I've been in property management, I know. So we're going to have to call the cops. What are we going to do? It's ridiculous. And the whole neighborhood is just such a wonderful, wonderful place to be. I'm there every day, like I said, and they know me. They call me when the dogs get loose. Gladys's dogs are out. They call me. I live clear across the city. Everybody in the neighborhood knows everybody. And you cannot tell me that this is not going to change the atmosphere of the neighborhood. And once you let one in, then we have to let the rest in. So how many other people are going to come in after this, buy a house, and change the whole neighborhood? There's plenty of other properties to do this in Lafayette and in West Lafayette. So I would just strongly suggest that you guys don't vote this in.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in opposition? Last chance. You have a rebuttal?
My name is Colin Gifford at 348 Overlook. Appreciate everybody's time this evening. Also appreciate hearing from all the neighbors and all the concerns. We definitely take those to heart and into consideration. A couple points I wanted to bring up. This is a house for us. We have invested in the house and we want to keep it nice. So we don't want parties at our house either. We want it to stay nice so we can come and stay there for Purdue games, football games, and basketball games. That's why we purchased the house. We want to also be a part of the neighborhood. Someone mentioned to donate to a tree fund. We'd be happy to do that and any other things like that. We want to be a part of this neighborhood as well. Also, there were comments about traffic. if this is not a short-term rental, it'll be a long-term rental. So on average, short-term rentals have 50% occupancy or less. So if it's a long-term rental, there will be somebody there all the time, which would arguably be more traffic. Also, there, as was discussed in the APC's report, there's plenty of parking for our occupancy. Also, something that was brought up were the covenants in the neighborhood, which we are familiar with. We know those exist. We spoke to the recording office here in this building and got some information about those. They were able to easily pull up our house and say that those covenants did not apply to us. However, let's assume that they do. The only thing in the covenants, there is a line about nuisance, which I can understand the neighbor's concern. However, our house will have the strictest rules in the neighborhood. Everybody else in the neighborhood is allowed to have pets. We're not allowed to have pets. Other houses in the neighborhood can have parties. We're not allowed to have parties. We are monitoring noise. Nobody else in the neighborhood is monitoring noise. We're monitoring our maximum occupancy of 6 with a camera. All those things to prevent nuisance, which our house is going to be the most regulated. Also, I agree with all the neighbors that this neighborhood is incredible, very peaceful, and is one of the reasons we purchased the house, so we can spend time up here. One thing that is very interesting that I thought wasn't brought up, none of the neighbors mentioned any current concerns with the neighborhood. Why I find that interesting is that there's actually already an Airbnb operating at 124 Westwood Drive, and it has 60 reviews. So it has been in operation for a long time to get 60 reviews. So I just want to make the board aware that that has been operating for a long time, and nobody here brought up a concern about that. So we would obviously hope to continue that ourselves. Also, our local manager, if there are issues, is 3 miles away, and we can contact her if any issues arise. Couple other points here I wanted to discuss. My wife and I took time to review previous BZA cases with similar topics, and we tried to review as many as we could, and when we did that to try to ensure that we were going above and beyond previous BZA cases that have been approved. So we feel like we've done that with our engineering controls. And lastly, I want to thank the Area Planning Commission. They've been incredibly helpful throughout this whole process. I'm very thankful for their help, and also very thankful for their analysis and recommendation of approval. That's all I had.
Thank you. Any comments, questions from the board? Gary?
Just a couple of thoughts I've had as we heard the neighbor speak. The special exception would run with the house, so if my concern would be if someone else bought it, they may not have the same controls, but maybe we could deal with that. If this isn't approved, as was discussed, that could still be a rental house. It could be, as long as it's rented for 30 days or longer, we have no control. It's really state law controls that. They said they reviewed cases. We have reviewed cases. Some we pass, some we don't. And one of the reasons that we pass some, if it is an Airbnb, you actually have more control over that property being a rental, as the permit that's issued by the county can be revoked. The special exception can be revoked if they don't meet their commitments. So that's kind of a history. And maybe that other Airbnb, when Airbnb started, there really wasn't an ordinance to control those, and they started popping up and had some concerns, and so the Plan Commission wrote some ordinance to hold this public hearing to have input before we reviewed them. Maybe that addresses why it's an R1. But those are just my comments, and I guess I'd like to hear other comments. If they used it for...
Are you talking to us or yourself?
I'm talking to anybody who wants to listen. But, if they wanted to use it for sporting events that last about 6 months, they could rent that house on short-term basis. For the other 6 months, it'd just have to be for 30 days, or they could only do one Airbnb per 30 days. I'm not sure how that works, but in any event, that's probably going to be a rental unless they sell it. So I guess I'd like to hear other comments. Thank you.
Other comments from the board? We're done taking public input at this time. Other comments? I guess a couple of questions that I have. What prevents an Airbnb owner from changing rules that they have? I mean, it's not in our, it's not a condition of the application's my understanding, or is it that they, that they can't, they said they can't have parties, but what prevents them from changing that so that they could, or have pets?
That could be added as a commitment if you wanted to add that tonight. But as you said, there's nothing to prevent them from changing their house rules unless it was included with the petition.
Thank you. And just a comment that I know there's been some mention of covenants, and we don't consider covenants. Covenants are actually dealing with private an agreement between landowners. So if there's an issue with the covenants, that is for you as neighbors to take up and to figure out.
How would we do that? How would we take up the covenant?
You'd probably have to seek legal advice on how to do that. We can't give you legal advice. I would say you would have to contact a lawyer, an attorney. We're done taking public comment. I mean, you can ask questions of staff after. Did you have something, Tom?
The petitioners plan to use it themselves. Are you guys ticket holders? Produce any season ticket holders? You are?
Yeah, football and basketball.
And it's to offset the income. It's not strictly to make profit.
Correct.
Just
I guess another comment that was made early on to answer a question is about compliance and why it requires a special exception. I mean, our zoning ordinance says that it is within compliance if they get a special exception. So it's not that it's not in compliance, it is the rules of our zoning ordinance that allows them to seek this special exception in order to have this Airbnb if we approve it. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we've got a ballot.
I took care already. It's right there. I'll take it. It's way down the hall.
Do you have any asterisks, comments? Just want to make sure you're...
No, I understood that.
Okay.
So I
Gotcha.
agreed with everything, but my decision was different. Hopefully that's okay.
Thank you. Just wanted
Okay.
clarification.
Has that ever been done in the history of the BZA?
Such things been done.
Yeah.
There are 6 ballots cast. There are 3 in favor to grant. There are 3 against to deny. So an inconclusive vote.
We have an inclusive vote, so we get to go through this all again at the next meeting in January. January 25th, I believe, at 6 o'clock, same place.
Can the people who voted in favor of it tell us why?
We are not allowed to talk about the case while it is in progress.
So in the
I'm-
interim,
we-
it's not an Airbnb, correct?
Correct. It's not an Airbnb in the interim while it's, so I mean, they don't have a permit to, they can't get a permit to occupy it as an Airbnb. We'll go ahead and hear our next case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2092, Jennifer O'Shea. Petitioners requesting a special exception to allow a transient guest house. May I pause while they leave, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna pause for a minute while everyone is able to.
I thought she looked familiar. Very good. Very good. Oh, I saw Jennifer come in. I hadn't seen her for 20 years, maybe 10 years, 15. I thought she looked familiar. Nice job.
One great house.
Happens accidentally.
You all right? I about lost.
I think you're good.
Did you put crack house in the minutes? I hope so, yeah. I hope. We'll let the minutes.
Go ahead,
Okay.
Gary.
I'll start over. I move to hear and vote on BZA 2092, Jennifer O'Shea. Petitioners requesting a special exception to allow a transient guest house operating 24 hours per day, 7 days per week, for a maximum of 6 guests on the south side of County Road 750 North, between County Road 100 West and County Road 50 West, County Farm Road. The .85 acre site is located at 819 West, 750 North, Tippecanoe, 18, Southwest 24-4, with conditions.
Have a second? Have a motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff, please.
Thank you. All right, so this is another transient guest house application, similar nature. This is going to be out in the county, a couple of miles north of Harrison on 750 North, right when it makes that S curve there. You can see on the aerial there. This area is full of single-family residences and agricultural fields. There's a little bit of floodplain from the Burnett Creek just to the south there. There's the aerial. It is heavily wooded behind the house, which is on the south side of the street. There's a closer-up aerial. There are several neighbors next to this house. And here is the site plan. All right, so a single-family residence, 3 bedrooms. Their maximum guest capacity will be 6 guests. The house has a 2-car attached garage, as well as a driveway with a capacity to park 4 to 6 vehicles. Staff believes that would be adequate for the maximum 6 guests. There would be no on-site owner with this special exception. It could be rented by a maximum of 6 guests as a short-term rental or less than 30 days, or as a standard long-term rental. Let's see. The proposed house rules strictly prohibit any parties and large events. They will help to minimize noise and traffic concerns in the area, and it would be comparable in impact to the other single-family homes in the area. A couple of other pictures here showing the front of the house. You can see the neighbors there. This is from across the street. You can see the picture on the left side shows the parking area. It is a gravel drive. And then just looking down the road, the speed limit here, I believe, is 50 miles per hour. It's a standard county road. That is a short stretch of road, however, I will say that. It would take somebody really revving up their engine to get up to 50 before they have to turn again at the other end of the curve there. Okay, regarding the ballot items, the UZO does authorize the special exception for a transient guest house. And it is staff's opinion that the requirements of development standards for the requested use will be met. When changing uses, all development standards are the same as a single-family residence. Petitioner will not be changing the existing structure for the proposed use. Granting the special exception will not subvert the general purposes served by the ordinance. If it's approved, only 6 guests can stay at this location, which is consistent with the existing structures and residential uses currently in place. Granting the special exception will not materially and permanently injure other property or uses in the same district and vicinity because of traffic. The traffic due to this use would be no different than any other homes and uses in this neighborhood. It will be rented at any given time to a maximum of 6 guests. 8 spaces are available to those 6 guests in the driveway and garage. Outdoor lighting, the existing lights on the exterior of the buildings are sufficient to illuminate the home and the driveway area. Noise production, the proposed house rules state they would not permit parties and large events, which would be the largest noise contributors. Noise associated with the guests renting this house for a short term would be similar to other properties in the area. Hours of operation 24/7, that's the same as any other residential use. Staff is recommending approval with the following condition. They need to obtain a permit to operate the transient guest home from the County Building Commissioner's office. I am happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you. Petitioner, is there a representative?
Good evening, APC staff. Thank you for all your help. My name is Jennifer O'Shea, and I am the owner of 819 West 750 North. And I purchased the home in March of this past year. I'm a local real estate agent, have been for 23 years. Purchased the home with the intention of fixing it up and improving it. That's one of my things I really find a lot of satisfaction in, is improving homes and taking it, property that is in really poor condition and improving it, and that's what I did with this home. Only flaw with me improving these homes is that I over-improve them. I do it so much so that I want to make it so nice that it's someplace I would live too. And in doing that, I fall in love with the home, and then I'm fearful that if this is my investment property, will someone else who I rent it to take care of it? So I really considered the long-term rental, because I did want to hold on to this home. I fell in love with it, as I said, and the more I thought about it, the more I was scared of the long-term rental, because there's not as much control over a long-term rental as there is a short-term rental. And honestly, I didn't really pursue it until the neighbor came over and she said, "What are you going to do with this house?" And I said, "Well, I'm actually considering and wondering if I should turn it into an Airbnb." And she was excited by the idea and said, "If you do that, I want to help." So she looked at it as an opportunity for her to be a co-host with me and to help me in running the Airbnb. So my experience is very different from the previous petitioner that was up here, so I do have the support of my neighbor. I'm also more agriculturally located, so I think that is very helpful too. I'm still only 12 minutes from Purdue, so not that far. I think it'll still make it, people will want to rent it. They won't mind the drive. I would like to share a little bit of my experience as a real estate agent in helping other people buy Airbnbs, just to help the board understand, and I think that long-term rentals don't have the control over the occupants and their ability to have parties as short-term rentals. There are rules in place, and I will say that from my observation of helping other clients who are buying Airbnbs, Airbnb and VRBO has come a long way in helping to improve the experience for not only the host, but also the guest that stays there. And for the host, I will say, just on my behalf or as an owner, no host wants anybody to come there and tear up their place. Nobody wants a party. That rule is strictly in place on almost every Airbnb guest house that you look at. They all say that. Airbnb now has the rule that no one under 25 can rent a home. They also allow you to impose fines on people who violate those rules, and they also allow you to ask them to leave if they violate the rule. The other very ingenious thing that short-term rentals have now instilled in their programs, and that is the power of the review. So when a guest occupies a place, they get a review, and the host gets to decide whether they want to allow that person to rent their place. If a guest gets a bad review, then they're highly likely not going to be accepted as a guest. So that, I think, has probably, from the people I've spoken to, has really transformed the industry and brought accountability to not only the guests, but also the hosts as well. So I just implore you to understand that I don't think anybody wants a negative situation with these Airbnbs, and that the companies, the hosts, are all working together to improve the experience and to offer a home away from home for people who come into our community, which is a nice asset for us as, Purdue community, that we can also offer that experience. So I think that's all I had to say, but thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor or opposition? Comments, questions from the board? Hearing none, we have a ballot. Much faster pace.
That's one. Where ordinance and that, or do I need to look the, they're met. All right. They're met. What time is it, Purdue game, 7? 7 o'clock?
Streaming on my phone.
It's not on. Off, right, off.
That can't be good, right? For a ball player. And the coach is leaving.
I knew he was leaving, but no, they.
And then he doesn't go to the bowl game?
Oh, he was.
No, I don't think he is.
It's a matter of, is he leaving for the whole game or are they going to coach for the whole game?
I think they won.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is he speaking to us?
Here's
Speaking
the
to,
petition. Yeah.
speaking to anyone that will listen.
That's back to staff.
There are 6 ballots cast, and all 6 are in favor of granting the special exception.
Special exception has been granted. Unless any member has the objection, the chair will order the findings of each member casting a vote for the majority decision of the board to be the collective findings of the board in support of the decision of the board. Hearing none, it is so ordered. Administrative matters. And did we want to talk a little bit about the bylaws?
I guess I don't want to go into too much depth because we'll do that next time, but we spoke earlier tonight to the Ordinance and Bylaws Committee about some proposed changes to the BZA bylaws, and chief among them would be that the bylaws would create a longer amount of time between the moment that an application, say for a special exception, is submitted to the hearing. Right now, state law and local and APC law requires a minimum of 10 days between submission and hearing, and it's rare that jurisdictions don't expand on that state law minimum 10 days. Most jurisdictions are 21, 23, or 28, so we're proposing to move to 23 days. That gives us a number of advantages in that it allows more time for the petitioner to meet with neighbors, for petitioner to talk to staff, for neighbors to talk to staff. Everybody has a better idea what's being requested and what the rules are and what's going to happen at the hearing, so the hearing will run more smoothly. Sometimes neighbors will find out they don't have any concern with what's being proposed, and so they don't remonstrate. So we're recommending that. We're recommending some changes to the actual hearing in that letters will not be read by staff into the record anymore, as Amanda did earlier. Instead, any letters that are received a week prior to the hearing will be included in the packet that is mailed out to the BZA members and available to the public a week in advance. That way, you have some time to digest that information, and we don't have the mind-numbing exercise of listening to somebody read 7 letters into the record. Oh, you did great. I mean, seriously, that was about as exciting as could be. Those are the primary ones. We also talked about, and I think we're going to talk about next month in more detail, the voting procedure for the Board of Zoning Appeals, whereas, you know, with votes right now, there can be a very long pause while people are writing out the findings, and then, you know, it's sometimes 10 minutes, and if you have 5 cases, that's an extra 50 minutes to the meeting. So we're working on an expedited route where you will essentially just vote yes or no to what's being requested, and then on your ballot, you will reference written findings. So you could reference the staff's findings, or you could reference the petitioner's findings. We're going to work through that a little bit more clearly and have the ballot for you to actually look at next month when we look at these proposed changes. Steve, am I missing anything big?
I don't think so. I think that's primarily it, is the voting and the...
Okay. So we just talked about it to the ordinance committee, because the changes we make to the ABZA bylaws, we want to make also to the Plan Commission bylaws, and so we wanted to get some feedback from them on those things. But we'll be bringing them back to the Board of Zoning Appeals as a formal agenda item in January for adoption or further conversation.
Thank you. Any other matters? Hearing none, I'll take the last motion.
Move to adjourn.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
So, Mr. Asterisk.
Well, I was going to put it on the record.
I understand.
So we're going to hear that case again next month.
They're coming at you.
Nothing prevents a person from changing their mind as they hear the new